Hey guys, how's it going? Hope you've been well. This video is going to be a lot about the LX570 as it pertains, as it relates, as it compares to the new Land Cruiser and the GX550. It's going to be a long rambling video. I'm going to compare and contrast. I'm going to talk personal views and opinions and thoughts. That's what this video is. It's not a review of the LX570 or anything like that. Though I'll probably do kind of initial walk around of my build here in a bit. So ask questions down below on that, and then I'll try to roll them into the video that I'm going to make on it. So a quick backstory. LX570 is essentially a 200 series Land Cruiser. I like the LX570 a little more than the Land Cruiser because I like AHC. I'll talk more on that maybe when I'm doing the LX570 video, though I've done LX570 videos in the past on my channel. You can check those out. They're already live, but it's also quite a bit cheaper than a Land Cruiser, and it's a little bit nicer in a lot of regards. So I like the LX570. So we're gonna kind of talk about the LX570, and it's basically a 200 series Land Cruiser. So you can kind of use those things interchangeably. They went from 2008 till 2021 or 2022. And then the true new Land Cruiser, the LC200, didn't come to America and now is not gonna come to America, but the LX600, which is the next generation, the 300 series Land Cruiser, came as an LX600 to the States, but not a whole lot of people are buying it because it's an over $100,000 vehicle. It's a great vehicle, but we're also not talking about the LX600, which is a little confusing because naturally you'd compare an LX570 to the LX600, but Toyota really muddied the waters by calling the new Land Cruiser in the States, which is really a Land Cruiser Prado, they just called it a Land Cruiser. So now the Land Cruiser in the US is compared to the GX550, which is a little bit confusing because the GX historically was a Prado, just like the new Land Cruiser is a Prado. That's basically the baby Land Cruiser. If you're not into Land Cruisers, probably not a whole lot of this makes sense, but it used to be that the LX, various iterations of the LX, was always the true big Land Cruiser. And it still is. Toyota got weird in the US this year and decided to screw everything up. So that's why I'm kind of comparing the LX570 to the new Land Cruiser, which is really a Prado, and the new GX, which is really a Prado. But once I get into some specs, you'll actually probably find that the LX570 to GX550 comparison is actually pretty relevant in terms of specs. They're the same size vehicle. So without further ado, we'll get into it. So the LX570, this is the first model year of the LX570. This is a 2008. Both the 200 series Land Cruiser and the LX570 started in 2008. 5.7 liter V8, seats 8, bomb-proof, loved and renowned all around the world for just being a wildly robust and overbuilt platform that goes forever. These 5.7s, there are multiples of them out there that are over 1 million miles. So the motor, the drivetrain, very robust. This is kind of the epitome of Toyota quality and durability. So I just wanted a family tank vehicle. Again, this is sitting on 285 75 R17s. Those are roughly 34, a little smaller than 34-inch tires. No lift, no AHC lift, no nothing. And again, I'm not gonna talk too much on the LX. I'll do a whole video on this. Just a quick, while it's in the background, that's kind of what's going on here. So when we're talking about the new Land Cruiser, the LC250 versus the GX550, they are very much the same vehicle. Much like the LX and the 200 series Land Cruiser have been very much the same vehicle. But there was more differences between the LX and the 200 series Land Cruiser than there is with the new Land Cruiser and the new GX550. Because the main difference here was in suspension. The suspension was different, but as far as I can tell, I'm pretty sure the GX and the GX550 and the new Land Cruiser are the same suspension. So really the only difference is a little bit of exterior styling, and that's primarily on the front kind of fascia and the rear fascia. From the profile, the GX550 and the Land Cruiser are basically the same. A lot of the dimensions are the same. I think the GX exterior is a tiny bit bigger because, I don't know, the bumper's probably a little more bulbous or something. But the new Land Cruiser and the GX550 essentially the same. just the GX550 is a little bit nicer and a little bit more expensive. So by all accounts, the GX550 is just a better machine than the Land Cruiser. And the only real reason to get the Land Cruiser is A, it's a little cheaper. B, it comes at cheaper at a more base model. The GXs pretty much only come as premium setups. So it's essentially if you want the Land Cruiser name, or if you want to save a little money, or if you just don't like fancier things than the Land Cruiser. But pretty much the GX550 is better in every way. So we're going to compare it to the GX550. So when I'm saying I saved $60K by not buying a GX550, I'm comparing it to like a decently spec'd GX550. This was under 20 grand. And GX550, you're going to be paying 80 grand probably. I think you can get into them for mid 60s, but markups and taxes and all that stuff. 60K sounded good. Maybe it's more like 50K. I don't know what I titled the video or made the thumbnail. Maybe it's 50 or 60K, but I saved about 50 or 60K by going with the LX. And after that very, very long rambling intro, we'll talk about why. So again, new Land Cruiser GX, about the same vehicle. I'm going to be comparing the LX570, the GX550, but you can take most of those comparisons and compare them against the Land Cruiser, and they'll be the same thing. So I actually spent a little time on this one, and I took a bunch of notes just to kind of compare things, and I looked at specs online, because specs are a real comparison. How something makes you feel is, I could talk about it all day, and the LX570 makes me feel a certain type of way. It's like driving around in a bank vault. It's like driving around in a sensory deprivation tank on wheels. It's just, I used to have a Sequoia. I'll talk more about like why I sold the Sequoia, got the LX570 in my LX570 video. But the LX570 just makes you feel a certain way. And any 200 series Land Cruiser owner will tell you that. Will the new Land Cruiser make you feel that way? I don't think it will quite as much, or the new GX550, I don't think quite as much. So feelings aren't really measurable, but pretty much everything else I'm gonna talk about is gonna be measurable. Now, this is an older vehicle. It's not that nice inside, though it certainly was nice at the time. It's just the interior is dated. So one area that the GX wins for sure is technology and niceness. Like, it's gonna have a bigger screen, it's gonna feel nicer. Though the new GXs, they're kind of getting a lot of heat for it. They don't feel very luxury inside. They feel very like boring and kind of Spartan inside even, and not so much luxury. But the GX550, like, pretty much everyone's gonna agree that it's nicer on the inside. It has better technology. It has more advanced safety features, the adaptive cruise control and stuff like that. Now, the LX went until pretty recently, just a couple years ago. So this again is a 2008. As you got further progressed through the years, some of those safety sense and some of those nice technology features did make it in to the LX570. But LX570 you're getting for 20K is gonna be an older one. So we'll just act like we're talking about the older one. Okay, so some interesting specs, I'll throw them on the screen as I'm thinking about them, is that the LX570, the 2008 anyway, again, it got a little bigger later in its life, but the 2008 LX570 is virtually the same dimension as a GX550 exterior. It's basically the same width, same length, same exact wheelbase, same height. The LX570 is actually, I think, like a ½ inch shorter than the GX550. So this big honking vehicle is actually smaller than a GX550. However, the interior is bigger in almost every dimension. There's more cargo room, there's more shoulder, there's more hip, there's more leg room. The only thing that GX wins out is there's slightly more headroom in the GX550, and I'm guessing that's because the seats are probably lower to the ground. The LX570 seats more than the GX550. That's the other difference between a GX550 and the new Land Cruiser, is that the Land Cruiser will only be a 5-seater, whereas the GX, you can get it as a 7-seater. The LX is an 8-seater. I think they sell some options of the LX and also the 200 series Land Cruiser as 5-seaters as well, but the full seating option for the LX is actually an 8-seater, so technically you can seat one more person in the LX versus the GX550. Will the third row be a little more cramped than the GX550? Yeah, but you'll be able to seat another person technically with a seatbelt, and you have a little bit more cargo room. Now here's one that maybe will ruffle some feathers. The LX has a better drivetrain. The 5.7 liter V8 is legendarily reliable. It's got quite a bit of power, but not as much power as the twin turbo 6-cylinder. That's the other thing that's a little different between the Land Cruiser and the GX550 are motor options. The new Land Cruiser is gonna have a 4-cylinder turbo with a hybrid option. The GX right now is a 6-cylinder turbo, and I think it is gonna have the hybrid option in the future. But no matter how you slice and dice that, this is probably an engine that will last longer, that will be more reliable. How reliable will the twin turbo V6 be on the GX550? I don't know, pretty good. I have a 2022 Tundra, so I have that motor drivetrain in a vehicle, in a truck, on 37s, and it is very good. It drives well, it's smooth, has a little bit of lag off the start. The 570 is very linear, powerful all across the board, but the new motor is more powerful. Technically, I think it has less horsepower than the 5.7 V8, but more torque. But having owned and driven both, I've also driven the 5.7 in the Tundra, and the new motor is gonna feel more powerful. It's gonna be faster and it's gonna get slightly better fuel economy, but what is the better motor? Probably most people would say the 5.7, because again, you're getting Toyotas for reliability and longevity. And the 5.7, I think, wins there. But that's up for debate. The twin turbo V6, again, is very good. I really like that motor in the Tundra. It's plenty powerful. With that comes towing. This model LX actually was rated to tow 8,500 pounds and actually kind of has some self-leveling stuff with the AHC, so actually tows really well. Later models of the LX were reduced in towing capacity. So the GX says it caps at 8,000 pounds. So this technically tows more than the GX that'll tow the most. But if you get a later model LX, then that will be a little bit less. So towing, we'll just say that's relatively close. The LX is a little bit heavier as well. Again, it's just a beefcake of a machine. LX, I would say, has better suspension. You'll read stuff online, people hating the AHC. That's a hydraulically assisted suspension system. It's able to raise 2 inches, lower an inch or so. You can have all kinds of setting, comfort, sport, and normal. You can adjust the suspension. You can have it lower when you're parked. It drops a little bit at speed for helping with fuel economy, supposedly. You can raise it with a 10mm wrench and 2 minutes of your time by almost 2 inches if you just want to put a permanent 2-inch lift on there. The AHC is an incredible suspension system. Some people like it because they think it can be faulty or whatever, but if you spend some time in the forums, you'll find that there are a lot of people that just absolutely love the AHC suspension, and it's really robust. The main kryptonite to the AHC system is if your lines rust out, basically. There are like some globes and you can change the fluid, but you really don't need to do that very often. The only weak point, again, is if the lines get rusted out there. But I would say the suspension system on the LX570 is one of the best suspension systems you can get on a stock vehicle, bar none. So that's, again, kind of personal. You'll hear people say they don't like it, and other people that know a little bit more say they like it. And if you want to mod it a lot, you want to really mess with the suspension, then yeah, you will pull it all out. But it's not hard to rip out and swap over to whatever kind of lift that you want to do on there. or whatever suspension you want to do. But factory for factory, I would say the LX570 is about the best suspension you can get. Again, that's as it pertains to everyday. This is like your grocery getter, your light trail rig, your adventure mobile, your campground, your national park tourer, your highway cruiser. The hydraulic suspension is so good for all of that. Is it going to compare to like a Raptor or something? Not in the slightest, not remotely. But I would say it's better suspension than the GX, but that's arguable. Now, one of the main bummers of the new LX5 or the new Land Cruiser and the GX550, previous gen GXs had a tailgate that opened to the side. Overlanders love that because you could do a little flip down table and whatnot, but usability is kind of a little bit weird with that. Now, what I like in 4Runners and Sequoias is the roll down rear window. That's very nice. It's much better than the flip up glass, but most people will agree that the actual best is this baby right here, a tailgate. So split hatch with a tailgate. Every Land Cruiser has a tailgate. It's like almost not even considered a Land Cruiser if it doesn't have a tailgate. The new Land Cruiser and the new GX550 does not have a tailgate. So I would say the rear cargo area is definitely better in the LX. Some people say, oh, it's nice to have a little bit of cover overhead, but you do get a little cover overhead with this hatch and you get a tailgate. Nice for loading and unloading because obviously your stuff is going to kind of stay in there. You can set it here, and tailgate's just pretty much better no matter what. What you do have also on even a 2008, even the earliest gen LX, is you do have a powered lift gate as well. The tailgate is not, but the upper is. So you can lift it and close it electronically if you'd like. So I would say hatch area win to the LX. Now, quick interjection. I realize this video may come off as like, I hate the new GX550 or the new Land Cruiser. That's not the case. I think both of them are sick. I'd love to own them. It's just hard for me to justify the cost for yet another vehicle. It's crazy. So the LX570, much more justifiable. I was thinking maybe I could swing the GX550 for Ashley, but she's very much content with her RAV4. So here we are. But as I was like kind of wrapping up filming, I was like, it probably comes off like I'm a hater, but I'm not. Like Land Cruiser guys, my 80 series, this is my 60 series. I like all things Land Cruiser. So hopefully this video doesn't come off hateful at all. Just, you know, kind of to make you think, do I need to spend $70K on a GX550? Or will an LX570 check all the boxes? Food for thought. This is a minor one maybe to some people, but earlier gen LXs have a manual handbrake. I far prefer that still to any electronic weird little switch handbrake. The LX570 has a tiny bit more ground clearance factory than the GX, but that's further increased with the hydraulic suspension, which you can raise it another 2 inches. So I think they're both in the 8-inch range for ground clearance, which isn't a ton, but technically the LX has a little bit more ground clearance stock and then a lot more ground clearance when you raise it up. Now this will vary between the different models and whatnot. This has a better approach and departure angle than the GX does as well. But again, later on in the LX line, that wasn't the case, but departure and approach angles, they're just kind of numbers to throw at you. They don't mean a whole lot, especially if you're gonna like start building it and change different bumpers and lift and like all those angles will change. So I don't put much stock into approach and departure angles. They're pretty similar. Technically, this model year is a little better than the GX. The LX has a really impressive light feature stock. They got puddle lights. As you approach the vehicle, you won't be able to tell because it's so bright out, but as you approach the vehicle, the interior lights, the puddle lights, and the footstep lights all kick on to kind of like light up your approach to the vehicle. That is the nicest of any vehicle. I think my Super Duty had a pretty nice puddle setup too, but I would say exterior lighting actually is a win on this 16-year-old car over the GX. I saw reviewers pointing out how cool the GX illuminated interior thing was. Well, the LX had that 16 years ago. The LX, this one has the Mark Levinson sound system, which a lot of people will say is one of the best factory sound systems you can get in a car. I agree, it's a very good factory sound system. You can get Mark Levinson sound system in the GX. I haven't heard it. I'll assume that the high-end GX sound system is better than the Lexus, but the Lexus certainly ain't no slouch. Technically, the LX has more way seat adjustment than the GX. The LX actually had amazing leather seats factory. These were reupholstered with less than, I like the factory leather better than what these got reupholstered in. But I don't know, even though on paper the LX seats are maybe better, I would guess that the GX seats are better. They certainly look nicer, but the LX seats are very nice. We'll call that one, I don't know, a tie, or we'll just give the benefit of doubt to the GX. But the LX does have factory heated and cooled front seats and heated rear seats. I think the GX has that option, but I don't know if it comes factory, so we'll see. We'll say that's kind of a tie, though I would guess, again, newer technology, newer vehicle, I would guess the heated seats are probably a little better in the GX. The LX, mine doesn't. They offered the heated steering wheel in 2010. Mine does not have a heated steering wheel. Heated steering wheel is an option on the GX. I believe the GX has 3 climate zones, front, left, front, right, and rear. The LX actually has 4 climate zones. It has front, left, front, right, rear left, and rear right, which is nice. I believe the GX also has the very nice vents. We got vents down here, and then we got vents up top for both rows. I think the GX is similar. Weird stat, but at least the 2008 LX has a better drag coefficient than the GX550. Not that that matters too much, and they're pretty close. Both of them have the option for a cool box, and it's wild. They look like the same thing. Even the button to turn them on and off look identical. My LX doesn't have the cool box. It's kind of, I don't know what's better, having the cool box or not. You get a bigger center console. I like to keep stuff in my center console, but the center cool box is cool. Most LXs do have it, and it is an option on the GX, so they both kind of have that option. So a couple of things that are definite winners for the GX. The LX is a full-time 4-wheel drive system with the center differential kind of torsion lock, so it does turn it into effectively a true 4-wheel drive, but it was not offered with a front or rear locker. Obviously, you could add those aftermarket if you want. The GX does not come standard with a rear locker, but it is a factory option, an electronic rear locking differential. So that is one point to the GX. You do have the option for the rear locker that you don't have in the LX. Like I mentioned earlier, the GX is gonna win on kind of just its newer, nicer tech. You'll just have a nicer technology experience in there, and the interior cabin obviously is just newer and more updated and refreshed. I believe later model LXs had the inside sunshades that you could pull up. They call them peasant blockers in the industry. I don't know, mine doesn't have it. Those may have been offered on later model LXs. I'm actually not sure about that, but they are an option on the GX. It's kind of nice if you have kids, I guess. But what the LX does have that the GX doesn't have, and these are, you know, probably even more useful, is it's got ashtrays. So when your kids need to smoke some cigs in the back, you got it, baby. You got it. The GX does have an optional panoramic roof that's kind of neat. It doesn't actually open, but you can do like the, you know, send electricity through it to make it opaque kind of deal. I don't know, I forget what that's called. But the LX does have a moonroof as well, and the standard GX moonroof is pretty similar to the LX, but I don't know, we'll give that to the GX as well. GX probably has better headlights, and it probably has better brakes. I will be upgrading my headlights actually to some TEQ customs. So I'll probably have better headlights than the new GXs, but factory, the new GX probably has better headlights, maybe better brakes as well. I'm not sure. So that kind of just wraps it up for me, I think. And that's how I saved 50 or 60 grand by not buying a GX550 and instead keeping and building out my LX570. Now the plans for this are to do pretty much a full build out on this. I'm doing bumpers, roof rack. I want to have a bunch of exterior storage. This is going to be kind of my family adventure vehicle and just the family tank. We're going to the pumpkin patch and we're rolling full family deep LX. So I just want to build it out to be like an ultimate prepared daily driver, but also kind of weekend family adventure mobile. So you can watch the build progression of that on my channel. And then the only other thing, this is kind of an interesting thing for me, is probably not everyone feels this way, but I got kids, I got dogs, I live in the mountains of Colorado, so there's a lot of dirt and mud and stuff in my life. So I actually have found that I like a more beat up vehicle. So I much prefer like the dogs jumping in this, the kids spilling a drink on an older vehicle. That's actually why I went from the LX570 to the Sequoia originally, but I just missed the LX570 so much. So for me, having it a little beat up, a little abused already is also a huge, huge bonus. I know that won't be the case for everyone. Anyway, hope you enjoyed. Let me know if there's anything else you'd like to add. Again, if you have any questions on the LX570, I will be doing a whole series on that very soon, so let me know. All right, guys. Well, until next time, take care.